Hello, I'm Angela Princewell.
And I'm Shireen Abdi.
And someone asked us this question. It was supposed to be a quick question, but we think it requires a little bit more detail. So here it goes. The question goes, my wife says I owe occupation rent. What does that mean? Shireen thinks she can answer this question in a minute. So go.
Okay, well, no pressure. So occupational rent is essentially where a spouse who's jointly on title to a property is jointly owned property and is not getting the benefit of occupying the property because the other person is, can it go after the party for one half the fair market value of rent. So for example, if the rent that would ordinarily go for about $3,000, then that person would want to bring a claim for $1,500 in terms of occupational rent, depending on how long someone's been residing there. You could go back to that period of time. The goal, usually it's a remedy to kind of shield against the non-occupying spouse from paying, the expenses towards that property often, generally.
Okay, that's a lot, but you did say that in a minute. So, okay, so if I understood what you said, you're saying occupation rent is generally to reimburse the other part, the non-occupying party, correct? Okay. And so the idea really is just we don't, as the owner of a property, you have a right to enjoy that property. And if someone prevents you from enjoying it, whether in the form of using it personally or in the form of being able to rent it out and get revenue from it, you need to be compensated for that. And that's really what your spouse means when she said you owe her occupation rent.
Yes.
Good. Okay, so that's done now. But let me expand. So the occupation rent it's something I was reading like in some recent cases, and in the past, in my experience, I found courts were more reluctant to order occupation rent, except it was an expensive period of time. So now that you know what occupation rent means, we don't want to give the impression that if you're out of the house for a couple of months, then you can, then you get an occupation rent. It's usually not like that. And courts traditionally would order them in exceptional circumstances. So, but the courts are moving away from that, and the case law is reflecting that occupation rent should be ordered. It should be the exception, but it shouldn't be exceptional. You don't need exceptional circumstances. So it would not be routinely ordered. So again, my example of the fact that you were out of the home for 2 months doesn't mean you get rent for those 2 months. But if the facts of your case support that, support you getting occupation rent, we cannot make that argument that, well, this should be an exceptional remedy and all of that. So
Yeah.
what might make, I mean, there's factors that people consider, right, when thinking about whether they would be eligible for occupation rent, or whether a court would order it, I should say. What are some of those factors?
Yeah, so some of the factors that make it reasonable to order occupational rent is, how long of that period you've been, basically the rental claim is. So the longer you've been out of the home, the stronger the claim, and of course, obviously the intention. Another reason could be whether the person had to move out, the person that had to move out could access their equity in the home. So if, for example, you're drawing down capital like the home equity line of credit, or maybe refinance the home in that period of time and it was dispersed or some, that's an odd different nature. But, if you had access to the equity in the home, that would also, be a situation where it may not be awarded. And another situation is where if support is being paid. So if someone has a support obligation, if support was being paid, and, the non-occupying spouse can also go after the issue of, or sorry, the issue of occupational rent makes it difficult because the spouse is also paying support and things like that. And then who paid the expenses for the home? So that's an additional relevant factor. If the children are in the home, whether they're residing in the home, and whether the home increased in value. So those are some circumstances where, you know, you might want to look at additional factors for occupational rent.
Yeah. Okay. So we said we were going to keep this short and sweet. So I will stop this here. And yes, subject to any other clarifications that are required. I think we've explained to you what occupation rent is. We've let you know that it's not the norm, but it's not an exceptional remedy. So, it's something that a person can get based on the factors that Shireen has just, told you. They're obviously not an exhaustive list. So those are just some food for thought. So be careful if you're in a home and the other party wants to sell the home, you're not letting them sell the home, and years are dragging on and they're contributing to the home. Or sometimes I could even just go into a straight out mathematical exercise, and if we offset the spousal support obligation against occupation rent, the occupation rent might still be more. So do be careful, if you're in a situation where it might appear that you're preventing somebody else from being able to have access to a jointly owned asset. So do seek legal advice. And if you've been ousted and you want to know what your remedies are, then obviously occupation rent is one option to look at. So everyone, have a fantastic weekend, and it's bye for now.
Bye.